Good morning, everyone. So, Canvas died when I was uploading the next quiz. So, no time limit. Yeah. Yeah, should be time limited. See the right answers. Due date 10 a.m. on Friday. Okay. So, that is supposed to be due today, but it didn't have a deadline entered, so we'll just make it due on Friday. Alright, so let's take a look at the sample midterm. This is kind of the easiest way of going through a practice for the midterm. Midterm, again, will be on Friday. We will have class on Friday. You don't get the day off, unfortunately. The testing window will start after class on Friday, and it will be open for, I guess last time I gave you guys a 48-hour window, so I guess I can do that again. It's fine. And basically, once you start it, then you have to complete it within that time window, or within the 2-hour time window. I'll probably give you guys 2 hours instead of 90. So some students always like open it up and like look at it and then close it out, and then they get hosed by it. Like, you open it up again, yeah. So don't launch the quiz until like you're ready to sit down and just like do it. It is open internet. It's open notes. You can, if you want to look up equivocation fallacy, you just come on here and type equivocation, and look it up. That's all fine. I don't care. It's all good. The only thing you can't do is ask somebody else for help, and you can't go onto any of the cheater websites like Chegg or Course Hero or things like that. Midterm is on Friday. This sample is just practice. Yeah. That's why it's a sample midterm. This is not the midterm. This is a sample midterm. This is a sample midterm, not the real midterm. Don't get them confused, or you're going to be greatly disappointed. I've said it so you can retake it as many times as you want. This is not going to be how the real one is, right? The real one, you get one shot at it. You can't do it, get the right answers, and then try doing it again. So for the practice, though, you can retake it as many times as you want. And I'm going to bump up the time limit to 2 hours. I don't really like time, tight time delays. Although, I mean, it's 30 questions, so that's pretty generous, I think, already. Okay, so shouldn't have told us the sites. Oh, there's actually lots of sites. Like, my logical fallacy is there's the NFL referee logical fallacy site if you're into football, which probably some of you are. I don't know. So it's just a bunch of NFL referees making memes about different logical fallacies. That can be fun for you. Then there's my logical fallacy. So yeah, there's all sorts of websites you can go to. I think honestly the best resource for you is on the files section of Canvas. You'll see that there is something called the Fallacies cheat sheet that I made for you guys, and it's sort of a list of the ones that are going to be on the first midterm. So 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So these are the ones that I taught So they're the ones that are going to be on the midterm. Sometimes people call fallacies different names. There's hasty generalization versus false generalization, changing the subject versus red herring. There's a lot of different names for some of these things, like ad hominem. Well, some people call it a personal attack, but that again, an ad hominem is not the same thing as a personal attack. An ad hominem is when you attack the person making an argument rather than the argument. So that's a type of genetic fallacy. A genetic fallacy is the origin of an argument doesn't make it good or bad, right? Like, Hitler liking vegetarianism doesn't make vegetarianism good or bad, right? Right. That's not to say that Hitler didn't like bad things also, because he was Hitler. It's always funny when people learn that when he promised to not invade, people, he lied. Yeah, he was Hitler, dude. He was a bad dude. He made a promise and he broke it. Yeah. He's Hitler. So the dropped a bit of coffee here. Yeah. So just because Hitler makes an argument doesn't mean it's right either, right? Like, you just have to look at an argument on its own merits. So all the lectures are up here as well. Syllabus, things like that. So in the file section, fallacies cheat sheet. Took notes of the PowerPoint for nothing. No, it helps you process it. Because I always watch the scores on these quizzes and things like that. Did we go over the second valid and invalid sound? It needs a hyphen there, doesn't it? Did we go over the second quiz? Did we review it? Because there's going to be valid, invalid, and sound on this midterm as well. Right? We went over the second one, but not the first one. So do we do this one? Person plays the guitar, they're cool. Kearney is cool. Kearney plays guitar. Yeah, and it was funny just watching people like agonize over that. And it's like, it doesn't matter. It's an invalid argument. Yeah, it literally doesn't matter. That's why I put it in there. It's because I wanted to see how many students, would get distracted by that. So we didn't do the first one. We went over the second one on Monday, but we didn't do the first one. Okay. So we're going to do invalid, valid, and sound as well on the thing. We're going to do a little bit of truth tables. So this argument, invalid, valid, or sound. Let's stats. Yeah, so not a great grade distribution here. The modal response is everybody getting them right, and there's a lot of people that got like one right, which is why I gave you guys a best of 2 on that one. So yeah, this is sound. All mammals have hair. You're a mammal, therefore you have hair. Right? And so if there's any ambiguity, like what if you shave your dog, like, that's why I will give you guys some things. Like if there's an ambiguity, I'll resolve the ambiguity for you. So for those of you that said it was valid, that means you think that it's not true that all mammals have hair, which again I gave to you. And perhaps if you can demonstrate to me that you are not a mammal, then I will give you the point on that one. If you are a robot like Zuckerberg, then I will gladly award you the point on this one. As far as I know, all of you guys are mammals. Sir, that is reptilian. Do we have to take the midterm on Friday after class, or can we take it earlier? It'll be from Friday through Sunday. So after class, the midterm opens up. I don't want people taking it before class. It'll be a distraction. So take it after class, and basically once you start it, you have 2 hours to do it. Don't wait until the last second to start it, because the window will slam shut on you towards the end. So there's a tight deadline of whatever the deadline is. Okay. If the integer is negative, the absolute value of that integer is equal to -1 times that integer. That is true. If an integer is non-negative, the absolute value is equal to the integer. That looks correct. That looks correct. Therefore, the absolute value of the integer must always be greater than the integer. Nope. Nope. Because in this case, it's greater than. In this case, it's equal to. Right, so you cannot derive this from this. If I said greater than or equal to, it would be correct. But in this case, we have the absolute value is greater than it. In this case, the absolute value is equal to it. So it must be greater than or equal to. So this is a conjunction, which if you guys did the Xi books, you would get. Or you could just use your powers of math, right? Like 5 is not greater than 5, right? So this is invalid reasoning. Invalid, valid, or sound. You are what you eat. If you eat something, then you become it. I've eaten a chicken, therefore I am a chicken. Yeah, this is valid because you don't become a chicken if you eat it. You know what I mean? It's a phrase that's kind of meaningless. Yeah. Thought Zuckerberg was a lizardman. Yeah. All right. The truth table is what's going to get me since I haven't done one in a minute. Is there any place where I can practice truth tables? Yeah. I could probably review it as well. There's one on the sample midterm, so I can just go over that. So the logic is valid. You are what you eat. I've eaten a chicken. I'm a chicken. That's valid reasoning. However, the premise is not true. You don't become a car if you eat a car. All right. So here is the sample midterm, and let's see how people are doing on that. For those that have taken it early, the answer is pretty well. Okay, doing pretty well. Of course, probably only the most diligent of students have taken it so far. There's 2 perfect scores and 2 70%. Okay. So the memes on this were actually taken from a lot of my friends' Facebook pages. So I don't tell them that I screenshot their posts sometimes. This was all last semester, so it's the end of the Trump presidency and things like that going on. It opens on Friday after class, yeah. So there's going to be class on Friday. I'm not one of those professors that'll just take the day off. No. All right, so what fallacy is this person making? I heard you promise that you'd go out and party if you finish your homework. You're partying right now. Clearly you finished your homework. If X, then Y. Y, therefore X. So it's affirming the consequent. If you finish your homework, you will go out and party. So this one confuses people. Word problems, right? English. The hardest thing in this class really is just translating English into a logical equivalent. So you'd go out and party if you finish your homework. So that means finishing your homework is the X part, right? If X, then Y. So if you finish your homework, you will go out and party. I see that you're partying, therefore you did your homework. So if X, then Y, Y, therefore X. That's the affirming the consequent fallacy. So try to translate English into logic, and then it makes these things a lot more clear. Because your English brain will trick you. You know, you promise, you read that and you're like, it seems reasonable. He said he would party if he finished his homework. He's partying. He finished his homework. He didn't say what he was doing if he didn't finish his homework, though. So this is an affirming the consequent fallacy. What fallacy is person A making? Every Tool song is amazing. What about Parabol? It's just a boring intro to Parabola. I don't believe this, by the way. I think Parabol and Parabola together are a brilliant pair of tunes. That doesn't count. It's not a true Tool song. So if you ever see that, that's just a dead giveaway that it's no true Scotsman. In fact, this is such an easy fallacy to recognize that a lot of people recognize it falsely. So anytime a lot of people hear no true blah, they're like, oh, that's a no true fallacy, no true Scotsman fallacy. And the trouble is that, like, sometimes it's actually correct. You know, sometimes doing something makes you not a true something. For example, you know, if a Scotsman isn't of Scottish descent and doesn't live in Scotland, and I don't know, you could argue they're not a true Scotsman, right? If somebody's like, I'm a librarian, and it's like, do you work as a librarian? Do you have a library science degree? No, and then you're not a true librarian. You know, and so if words have meanings, then, you know, there are times when you can actually use this phrase, right? You can actually use that phrase legitimately, right? You know, a Christian that doesn't believe in Jesus, you could argue is not a true Christian, right? You know what I mean? It's like, if definitions have meanings, then, you know, if there's a way of categorizing people, and maybe this is, you know, maybe it's almost verging on like a conversation we'll have to have about definitions, right? Because definitions are highly contentious in today's era, right? But if you think that, you know, definitions are shared between people, then, you know, no true Scotsman can sometimes be used legitimately, right? I'm a vegetarian. I eat meat, right? That'd be a good example, right? I'm a vegan. Bob's not a true vegan. He doesn't eat meat, or he does eat meat. You know, that would be, in my opinion, a legitimate use of saying not a true X, right? So anyway, what I'm trying to get at here is the no true Scotsman fallacy is not only somebody saying not a true blah, it's also when the blah has, or when, you know, there's no connection between the two things. Like, there's no real justification for Parabol not being a true Tool song. There's no justification for Kippers being what defines you as being Scottish, you know, that kind of stuff. Okay. So just be aware that in like, people are so sensitized to the phrase not a true whatever that a lot of times people will call no true Scotsman even when it's actually legitimate. You know, if you say somebody's not a true vegan because they love eating steak all the time, like, it's probably legitimate. You know? You guys understand? Does that make sense? So most of these fallacies, like, there's a flip side to them where, you know, like appeal to authority, there's a flip side. Like, you know, a lot of times you just have to appeal to authority because, you know, I can't read ancient Hebrew or whatever. You know, I can't read Greek, Latin, German, Russian. I can't read most languages on this planet. You know what I mean? So, like, I got to rely on people's translations. You know. Okay. So does that make sense to you guys? That sometimes the use of this phrase is actually legitimate. Are you guys with me on this? But if you see it on the midterm, it's probably going to be no true Scotsman. "10,000 Days" is a great album. Yeah. "Wings for Marie Part 2" just, like, knifes me in the soul, you know, every time I listen to it. I saw them. I saw them when they came to town at the Save Mart Center a year ago. It was a good concert. With some of my buddies from the college. It's a good time. What fallacy is person A making on the third line here? "Wings for Marie" had sad origins, sad story. Yep. About a death of a mother, dude. Right in the heart. Every time. 10,000 Days after a stroke. Yeah, brutal. All right. Facebook does nothing but evil for the world. What evidence do you have to suggest that? Well, everyone knows that. So that is a classic ad populum, where you appeal to the you appeal to the crowd's knowledge. And this is a very, I say this a lot, but it's true. This is a very popular fallacy for people to make. I mean, I have to call it politicians again. Like Trump. One of the things that Trump said was like, well, everyone knows, this, and that was his justification for a lot of things. Well, everybody knows this is true, and then contra-wise, on the left, they'll say, well, everybody knows that, Trump is horrible, right? Something like that. And so it's very common in politics to not really justify it beyond just sort of vaguely waving your hands at the crowds and things like that. Okay. So does populum mean popular? Yeah. So ad populum is appeal to popularity, right? There's Latin terms for most of these things. So, yeah, and there's a reversal to this. Like there's usually a reversal to a lot of these fallacies, which is like if you're gonna say Godfather was a popular movie, well, what's your justification for that? Well, they did a survey of a lot of people, and they voted it as a good movie. That's an adequate justification for a movie being popular. Appeal to popularity, is legitimate in that case. Like a lot of these fallacies, like I said, there's legitimate cases sometimes. Like, is Godfather a popular movie? Yeah, it's top 500 movies. It's like the AFI. And so you could also make a legitimate maybe appeal to authority, right? Citizen King, Godfather. There it is. So Godfather is ranked number 3 on the AFI top 100 movies list, right? I've seen most of these. Not these, but these. Yeah. So, yeah. So that everyone knows that. That's a classic appeal to popularity, ad populum. What fallacy is person A making on the third line here? Blizzard is a garbage company that makes nothing but bad video games. What about Diablo 2? Dude, that game was awesome. I meant to say post 2016 Blizzard makes nothing but bad video games, which may or may not actually be a true statement. Yeah. So somebody makes a claim, they get countered, so they shift their goalposts to pretend like they said something different all along. Okay, so that's a classic moving goalpost where they make a claim, you counter it, and then they just nope. I was claiming something else all along. Classic moving goalpost fallacy, and arguably a true statement. I mean, I guess Overwatch was okay. I guess I'm a little bit more excited about Overwatch 2, but I'm not going to pre-order it after the disaster that's been like the Warcraft 3 Reforged and Diablo 3 was garbage. Okay, Overwatch is bad now. I heard Diablo 3 got better, but like when I played Diablo 3 at launch, it was just a really, really bad game. And so Blizzard used to be a good company in my eyes, and I pre-ordered everything they did. Now it's just like, I'll wait and see. I'll see how it is. Okay. What fallacy is person A making on the third line here? Third line. I don't believe there's anything special about humans. Why do you say that? Science teaches us we're made of nothing but atoms, and there's nothing special about atoms. Therefore, There's nothing special about us. This is a classic fallacy of composition. Reasoning about the whole from the parts. You know, a gumball machine is not round because gumballs are round. You know, like sometimes students will confuse fallacy of division with fallacy of composition. Fallacy of composition goes the opposite way. You know, humans have a soul, therefore each individual atom in the human body has a soul. You know, it would be a fallacy of division, going the other way. Right? I rarely put them together on the same set of options, right? Because people get them confused sometimes. So typically, none of these, by the way, but you might notice that I don't have options that are close to each other. So no true Scotsman. The other options are denying the antecedent, which has nothing to do with this. Affirming the consequent has nothing to do with it. Ad populum, appeal to popularity. No, nobody's appealed to the crowd here, right? So none of these questions are like trick questions. You know what I mean? Like I try to make it like blatantly obvious what the right answer is. In this case, denying the antecedent and affirming the consequent are both on there. But ad hominem, yeah, I mean, false generalization, nah. You know, like these, you know, none of these are really close, right? Ad verecundium is appeal to authority, by the way. Ad verecundium is appeal to authority. And so, oftentimes appeal to improper authority is one way you put it, or the most common use of it. And so, you know, nobody here is saying, according to so-and-so, Blizzard sucks, right? According to my Seaside 1 professor, Blizzard sucks now. That would be an appeal to improper authority, right? So what do I know? I'm not a game critic. I just play games and teach video game design. So ad verecundium would be saying somebody else said, you know, an expert said something. That's not in here anywhere. So fallacy of division, no. Right? So my point here is that I don't try to trick you guys. I don't try to have two that are very close to each other, like red herring and non sequitur. That ever seen red herring and non sequitur? It just has to do with the intention of the person making the argument. Or red herring is when they intentionally try to distract. Non sequitur is just when they make a statement that's irrelevant. I don't split hairs that finely. You know what I mean? Like I'm just trying to. I just try to make the options pretty distinct and pretty clear. You tend to overthink them. Yeah. The only thing that it's okay to overthink a little bit is when there's a if-then thing, because then you have to sit there and be like, which part is the first part? What's the antecedent? What's the consequent? Right? And in the English language, they don't always go if X then Y. Right? A lot of times it can be phrased like this: then Y if X. Right? And so, anytime you have an implication, a predicate, you know, you should probably translate it into logic. All right. I'm going to leave work early tonight. You can't leave early. It's not right. I saw you leave work early last week. So that is a classic tu quoque, and I keep saying classic, but I mean, this is like legitimately like straight, like throwing the baseball straight down the line, you know. But you left last week. Anytime you say, well, you did it also, you know, that's a tu quoque fallacy. It doesn't mean that person A can leave work early. Just because person B left work early doesn't mean person A can leave work early. You know, maybe person B was sick and person A didn't know that, right? So, is affirming the consequent and denying the antecedent similar? Yeah. I mean, I guess they're both formal fallacies, right? So that's why I gave you guys 2 quizzes on the valid, invalid, and sound thing, is because there's 2 valid forms of doing an implication. X implies Y. One of them is modus ponens. One of them is modus tollens or modus tollens. And then there's two fallacious forms of that where the logic doesn't work. One of them is denying the antecedent. One of them is affirming the consequent. And so you have to be able to recognize the difference between these two for sure. So, they're distinct, but yeah, you have to know the difference between them. Okay, so here we have a graph: marriage rate in California versus Japanese passenger cars sold. This comes from that website that I showed you guys last time, which is a classic causation is not correlation, right? Or I think last time I called it correlation is causation because that would be fallacious. But a lot of times you'll just see the phrase correlation is not causation. Same thing. Tu quoque means you also. Yeah, you too. You do it too. You know. How dare you criticize our civil rights, America? You have terrible civil rights too. That doesn't mean Russia's civil rights were good. You gotta go straight to Gulag. Okay, so this is a correlation is not causation, or correlation is causation fallacy. So as marriage rate goes up, the Japanese passenger cars goes up, probably because you have more people or something like that, right? Like there's an underlying variable that is causing this correlation to take place. Okay. Governor Newsom, the marriage rate in California is falling. As you can see, the marriage rate in California tracks closely with the sales of Japanese cars. So, in order to raise the marriage rate, we need to provide subsidies to people buying Japanese cars so that they can buy more of them, and the marriage rate will go up. Right? And this sounds preposterous because it is, but people will legitimately make this argument. In cases where there is a correlation and they don't know whether or not it's preposterous, like in this case, it's totally preposterous. Like I said, Fannie Mae argues more people need to buy houses so that their income levels will rise, because income level tracks closely with home ownership in America, like legitimately, non-ironically, and the reason why they do that is because Fannie Mae's business is reselling mortgages. And so the more mortgages that are sold, the more business they get. And not reselling, they purchase mortgages from banks. So a bank gives you a mortgage, then Fannie Mae buys it, and that gives the bank money, and then the money could be used to loan another person money for bank. And so Fannie Mae owns like the majority of mortgages in America, all right? And so in order to justify the whole system, because nobody can really justify why people should own homes, it's a big policy decision in America. Like we actively incentivize home ownership in America as policy, as governmental policy. If you own a house, you get a massive tax write-off. All of the interest you pay on your loan, you get a write-off on your taxes. You get to deduct it. So you don't get to do that if you buy orange juice. If you get a loan for a car, you don't get to write off the interest on the car loan. But for mortgages, we do. And the reason for that is to make buying a home more affordable to people, to get more people into homes. And yet, people in government have never been able to justify why we're trying to push people into homes, right? From a certain perspective, there's kind of no difference from renting and owning a house, right? Like if you stop paying your property taxes, they will take your house away, So you never actually own your house from a certain perspective because you will pay, $7,000 a year on it, even if it's fully paid for, right? So, you're still paying $500-600 a month just in taxes, right? So you never own it, It's you can't ever get to a place where you're just done and you own your house. And so it's hard to say why, we say it's the foundation of our society and things like that, but is it? I don't know. I never felt any different renting versus owning. So live in a van, do the Tom Green thing where you travel the deserts and stuff like that. Does the same apply to land when you build a house? Do you get taxes? Well, yeah, if you own land, you are paying property taxes every year on it at the assessed value of the land. And And maybe, and let me make the opposite argument. That's a good thing, because if you could own land, let's say in Orange County, next to Disneyland, every time I went to Disneyland when I was a kid, which wasn't that often, there were these strawberry fields right next to Disneyland. Right next to Disneyland. You're just like, what the hell? What the hell is strawberry fields doing next to Disneyland, right? And yeah, it was like this, and then there's like this giant amusement park. You're like, why the hell is it a strawberry field? And so when property taxes go up, because it's on the assessed value. It's like there's like all these Hiltons and all these like giant hotels right next to Disneyland. There's just this giant strawberry farm there. The property value of that thing goes through the roof, and what happens when the property taxes go up is that it stops being profitable to make strawberries, and then they sell the property so that it can be more efficiently used. And so a friend of mine has made, I think, a reasonably decent argument for having higher property taxes, because it makes land use more efficient, right? So rather than the land being inefficiently used to grow strawberries, what you can do is sell the land that grows strawberries. Somebody puts up a hotel there, high value thing, then you use that money to buy a strawberry patch in less developed areas. And so it kind of causes the economy to, kind of fix itself. Whereas in California we have Prop 13, which protects the property taxes from rising too quickly. And so that allows you to do things like just have an undeveloped piece of land right next to Disneyland for decades, right? And I'm not saying I agree with it, because I'm not going to say if I agree with almost anything in this class. But I think my friend made a decent argument for that. Okay, so yeah, so they will justify things like home ownership using this fallacy. Like, this is, and if you're in epidemiology, well, what can we say? Well, when it gets cold, COVID rates go up, so maybe the virus does better in cold weather. Like, epidemiology is basically based on this fallacy. And until you can actually sit there and do experimental results, all you can look at are correlations and make guesses. Like, maybe COVID is temperature sensitive. Maybe it's because people are indoors more, and so epidemiologists are trained to look at correlations and then try to, and they're well aware of this fallacy. They just look at these things and try to suss out, what reality is just from looking at pairs of numbers moving together. Okay. What fallacy is this? All cops are bastards. This is again screenshotted. This is not my personal opinion. I'm just reading this to you. So hashtag all cops are bastards. This is what conservatism is about: promotion of suffering of any non-white person at all costs. He came to the U.S. as a refugee at 2 years old, found the wildfires that plague the West Coast. Now is to be deported back to a country he knows nothing about. So this would be, a false generalization, right? It's conservatism is in general about preserving traditions, right? Resistance to change, and it's arguably there's probably some other fallacies you can say it is. It's not an appeal to authority. It's not a fallacy of division. It's not a U2. So somebody probably looked at the use of conservative and thought it was fallacy of division just because I use those in my examples. You're a Republican, you must like guns. But no, that's a false generalization, right? And you could probably argue with me on that if you do think that's true. But in general, liberalism means liking change, and conservatism is resistance to change, as a very, very broad way of defining the terms. Yeah, okay. And so left wing, obviously. Now here is a right wing, because it's like Thanos. I make sure that everything is perfectly balanced on these things. If there's anything political on it, I'm very, very careful, because I will post political things, but I will make sure that there is exactly one on each side. Okay, and then sometimes, even I might even consider the independents in America as a weird thing. All right. 40% of people in America that are independent voters get completely ignored in the debate between left and the right. Okay. So what fallacy is the meme maker making here? It's a screenshot from a video of Nancy Pelosi. It's a deep fake thing, so it applied a clown makeup to Nancy Pelosi, and they just apply that over her one of her political speeches. And so this is a ad hominem, right? So they're just basically saying she's a clown. You shouldn't listen to what she's saying, right? She's giving a speech on Trump's mishandling, according to her, of the coronavirus outbreak. And so the author just applied a clown filter to her, basically, and uploaded it, saying she's a clown. You shouldn't listen to her, right? It's an ad hominem. Yeah, none of these are even close. What fallacy is contained in this meme? It's surprising how many students got this wrong last semester. So far, all of you guys got this one right. But last semester, a lot of people got this one wrong. So there's an anime called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And so last year we had a person called Jo Jorgensen. A woman named Jo Jorgensen was running for president under the Libertarian ticket. And so Jo Jorgensen, JoJo, right? And so JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is an anime that has pillarmen and stands and things like that. So please explain to your fellow Brits that Jo Jorgensen is a stand user and we cannot have that kind of person in power, taking the fight she'd get into and what the pillarmen would do to our already underfunded infrastructure. So the person's making a joke, obviously. Like, this isn't a serious argument. Right, so they're equivocating between Jo Jorgensen and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure as a humorous example of it. But look. Left wing, right wing, center wing, right? So perfectly balanced as all things should be. Okay, just want to say. So this is clearly equivocation, right? She's equivocating between Jo Jorgensen and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And humorously so. But okay, what fallacy is this? I know the world is flat because geologists are liars, and geologists say the world is round. I know that geologists are liars because the world is flat. So this is circular reasoning. Because X, then Y. Because Y, then X. I think that X is true, therefore X is true. Yeah. Yep. What fallacy is this? Go ahead and put those art supplies down because nobody wants to see a portrait of Ruth Bader Ginsburg salsa dancing with MLK and John Lewis or whatever you were about to draw. So basically she's portraying, I don't remember what the context was for this, but she's basically saying that this might have been after like Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, and so basically she's saying that all the people that are sort of complaining about Ruth Bader Ginsburg dying and Trump getting an extra Supreme Court pick they're just gonna like go out there and just like paint some sort of picture and don't have any real legitimate concerns and things like that, and so that would be a straw man of their view. This is what you're gonna do. I'm going to remove my nervous system so I won't be nervous anymore. I can't believe what a good idea this is. Why did nobody else do this? So that's also equivocation. What? You can have two of the same fallacy, but you just did equivocation 3 choices ago. Yeah, I know. Man, I once made a midterm where the answer to everything was C, except for one. Oh man, you should have seen the look on the students' faces on that one. I had this one guy just sit there after class, just like staring at the one that wasn't C. He's like, I just don't see it. I don't see how it couldn't be C. So I can't do it now because it's all it randomizes the order of the answers. So I guess I could override that, but that would be a hell of a lot of work to do. But yeah, it is possible you will get 2 of the same fallacy. That's doable also. Okay, red hair. United Nations. The COVID-19 pandemic is demonstrating what we all know. Millennia of patriarchy have resulted in a male-dominated world. Like, what the hell does that have to do with the pandemic? Like, it went like, here's the pandemic, and by the way, here's this irrelevant, like, it's a irrelevant move. All right. So, it went from a disease to what we all know. This would also be a ad populum, right? Like I said, ad populum is very, very popular, ironically enough, in politics, right? It's demonstrating what we all know, ad populum, right? But that's not one of the options here. If it was, it would be ambiguous. I don't like making ambiguous answers. Instead, it's a red herring because they just leapt to whoop whoop, and there's no connection. Like they didn't justify it. Like maybe you could justify it, right? Like maybe you could say because of patriarchy, it has resulted in a healthcare system that doesn't treat women as something like you could probably justify this, somehow. But this argument by itself is justified by nothing, right? It just leaps immediately to patriarchy, and then there's a pablum. This is the time to rebuild more equal, inclusive, resilient society. Like, I mean, what connection is there between the first part and the second part, right? It's a red herring. Make them all bees this time. Yeah. All right, the video linked on Facebook of Antifa protesters kicking and breaking the windows on an SUV, flipping off the driver as he drove off. A friend of mine wrote, "This is the world that leftists want." So that's also a straw man, right? Like, in general, even my leftist friends that like Antifa, because I have friends across the political spectrum. Like, I have a friend who's a Republican in New York, right, of all things, because apparently upstate New York is actually pretty Republican. I didn't know that, and so having a political conversation with him is like interesting. And I have a friend who's a communist, but he was a communist who was also an econ major. So he's like, yeah, there are parts of communism I don't agree with because they don't understand how economics work. So I'm a different kind of communist, right? And it's like interesting. It's like, I didn't, cool. Tell me more about your views. And so like I said, I have friends across the political spectrum, and I enjoy talking to all of them because they all have different perspectives on life. And so this is one of my friends saying this is the world leftists want. And even my point here is that even my friends that like Antifa and have participated in some of the various things don't want a world in which people have to smash windows and things like that, right? Like they'd rather not have in their view what they call fascism. Yeah. So this is a straw man of the leftist views. 1 week ago, stay inside, screw you. Today, stay inside, screw you. Yeah. So too cool, right? So they're saying they're invalidating, I don't know, one of them, maybe both, I don't know. It's appealing to hypocrisy, right? So I think this is in reference to the right-wing group storming the not the Capitol. This was before the 1/6 event. I think this is like in Wisconsin or something. And the left-wing media was criticizing them for running around with guns. And then when I think this was before the BLM stuff, there's the opposite thing, and then so basically people just switch hats and like, I'm criticizing you for doing the exact same thing. So yeah. So this meme is a tu quoque, right? It's trying to say they're being hypocrites, right? Yeah, protests or riots, the guy's got a Molotov cocktail. It depends on your perspective, I guess, to a certain extent. What fallacy is this? 99% of the places in the universe are hostile to human life. This is actually a very common argument. I've actually seen this argument made unironically a lot. 99% of the places in the universe are hostile to human life. Therefore, we can conclude the universe was not made for man's benefit. So, fallacy of composition, right? Because most places in the universe are hostile to human life, the universe was not made for human life. It's like saying, 99% of a automobile is not safe for a human being, right? If you're under the hood of your car, that's not a safe place for your car to be. Therefore, the car was not made for a human, right? Like, you don't want to be on the front bumper of your car. You don't want to be on the roof, you know what I mean? So there's very few places inside of a car that it's actually safe to be when the car is in motion. But that doesn't mean the car is not made for a human. It was. Truth table. All right, so this is what student was asking about, truth tables. All right, so let's do this. Okay, so X, Y. So you start off a truth table. If you have a two-value truth table like this, you go 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. If you have three parameters, X, Y, and Z, it's going to be X is going to be 4 1s, then 4 zeros. Y is going to be 2 1s, 2 zeros, 2 1s, 2 zeros, and then Z is going to be 1 0, 1 0, 1 0, 1 0. kind of the default pattern for a truth table. And so you fill in a truth table one column at a time. So I did this one for you. You can see there's no question here. So not x is just the opposite of x, right? So true becomes false, false becomes true. And then we're going to and together not x and y. So not x anded with y. Not x anded with y. So in order for an and to be true, both need to be true. So true anded with false is false. False anded with false is false. True anded with true is true. False anded with true is false. So all four people got this one right. So I might give you guys one like this, or it might be a 3, with X, Y, and Z. Invalid, valid, or sound. All right. People seem to have more trouble with this one. Invalid, valid, or sound. Okay. So if X is a square, the sum of its internal angles adds up to 360 degrees. A lot of times I like using math just because it's not ambiguous. Like, do all mammals have hair? Well, what if you plucked all the hairs out? Does it, you don't have to argue as much over those sorts of things in math. So if X is a square, the sum of its internal angles adds up to 360 degrees. Absolutely true. A square has 4 90-degree angles on the inside of it. Premise number 2, X is not a square. Take this to be true. So if I say take it to be true, it's true. You don't have to argue if it's true or false. Just assume it's true. Therefore, X's internal angles do not add up to 360 degrees. So I think the two people that said it was, I don't know why valid was chosen. You'd expect people to not see the modifier. So the correct conclusion here is that X's internal angles do add up to 360 degrees, right? If X then Y, X therefore Y. But this argument is if X then Y, X therefore not Y. So this is not a valid argument. So this is invalid. The people that said it's valid then are then saying that's wrong, which is maybe just a matter of math knowledge. I don't know. So a right angle is 90 degrees, right? A square has 4 right angles on the inside of it. It might have been a while since you guys have taken geometry. Who knows? Okay. All apples are either red, green, yellow, or some weird mix like with Fuji apples. The object in my hand is red. Therefore, I have an apple in my hand. So that is invalid reasoning as well. I could have a red fire truck in my hand, right? So if X then Y, Y therefore X. This is a affirming the consequent fallacy. Don't all quadrilaterals internal angles add up to 360? Yep. But if X is a square, it will add up to 360. This is a true statement. This is a true statement. Right? If X is a square, its angles will add up to 360 degrees, internal angles. Valid. So the person said valid probably looked at that and said, oh, that's false. And immediately clicked on valid instead of sound. You can't do that, right? You can't do that. This is a common mistake people make when making these questions, which is they see a false premise and they immediately just click on valid. You still got to figure out if the logic works. You know what I mean? Step one when answering these things, does the logic work? And if it works, then it's either going to be valid or sound. If it doesn't work, it's invalid. Step 1, is it valid or valid? Step 2, is it valid or sound? Because sound is valid and sound. And when I say valid, I mean valid and not sound. It's just shorter. So step 1, valid versus invalid. Step 2, valid versus sound. Okay. I hope everybody understands that Bill Barr designating Seattle, this was when the Chaz thing was going on. There's anarchist jurisdictions. It's nothing to do with conditions in these cities and everything to do with fascism. So this would be a ad Hitlerum, right? Which is just accusing somebody of fascism, right? For no particular reason. People who say kneeling is disrespectful to those serving our country. It's really disrespectful having a soldier be sexually assaulted. So that's a red herring, right? Like it moves immediately from Colin Kaepernick to a lack of investigation of a tragedy. Really, the soldier was I think raped and murdered, and then the investigation was very cursory. I mean, it's a terrible situation, but leaping from one to the other, it's like the UN thing. Like there's no connection here, right? So that is a red herring. So if any of the fallacies apply, it's invalid. Yes. If there is an affirming the consequent or denying the antecedent, it is invalid. Period. Full stop. Doesn't matter if your professor is cool or not. Doesn't matter if apples are red, green, or yellow or not. If the logic does not work, you click invalid and move on. Okay. You don't have to figure out if the premises are correct or not if the logic doesn't work. Okay. And like I said, these things were all screenshotted from my friends' Facebook feeds. Okay. All right. I don't think they actually said a lot of these things like this. These are just memes that they're linking to, but occasionally you'll see. This is the world that leftists want, and what was the other one? This one. Those were actually words by my friends. Okay, so maybe former friends if they see this video. I don't know. Okay. In addition to an equivocation between piracy, meaning high seas ship hijacking, and downloading music, what fallacy is this? I oppose efforts to change the laws on piracy since piracy is a crime. So circular reasoning, right? Like, it's a crime, therefore you can't change it because it's a crime. Because if you can't change a law because it's a law, then you can't change any laws. You know what I mean? Like, it could be very weird. What fallacy is person A committing in line 3? I think the stock market's going to go down between now and January. Why do you think this? Because Paul Krugman, Nobel laureate, professor, New York Times consultant, said on election day the stock market will go down since President Trump, and there's only 4 months left in his term. Dow Jones is up 10,000 points since then, so it's got a long way to fall by January. So this would be an appeal to authority. Ad verecundium is appeal to authority. So Paul Krugman made a prediction and was wrong, right? It happens, right? Be very leery of any person making a prediction about the future, because as the last 4 years, 5 years have shown, like, everybody could be wrong, myself included. I try not to make any predictions about the future, at all, because I think it's dubious. Okay. And so that's there's a few more, so we're out of time today. But take the test, go through the rest of them, see how you do, and if you have any questions about them, message me before the midterm starts. And like I said, 5 theories of truth will be part of the midterm. Yeah, I should probably put some of those on, huh? Yeah. On Friday we'll be doing more review. I'll probably do a little bit more review. We can go over the theories of truth and ethical systems as well. But I do want to put those on the midterm. The sample midterm is all just valid, invalid, sound, and fallacies. The sample midterm I gave you. But I do want to have the theories of truth, and I do want to have the ethical systems on as well. Okay. How do you make your wallpaper move? This is Wallpaper Engine. So Wallpaper Engine is super cool, awesome sauce. You can't see my other monitor right now, the one that I have Discord on, but you can actually have your wallpaper go across both of them. So you can have a single 4K monitor, or single 8K image, or it's not really 8K technically, but let's see, yeah, that one. And so you can't see my other monitor, but this picture goes all the way across the two of them, and it's pretty nice. Yeah. So Wallpaper Engine, well worth the purchase. Best game ever on it's super cheap on Steam, and most of there's just an amazing amount of really beautiful wallpapers on it. So I will very happily recommend this game to you on Steam. Okay. right, that's it, guys. Thank you. Have a good day, and we will pick this back up again on Friday. You can have an opening to Shrek as a wallpaper. You can have the entire Bee movie. All right, see you guys.